Welcome back to the Moon with the Lunas podcast, where we will be breaking down Bitcoin for real couples and real life. Today, we were able to sit down with Joel. He shares his unique journey into the world of Bitcoin, highlighting the influence of family, the importance of financial discussions in relationships, and the concept of sound money. We may be from different countries, but his insight is universal. Enjoy. Hi, Joel.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Awesome. Well,
Nice.
thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it's later where you are right now, and I know you have a family and everything. So we are so grateful that you're here today. But yeah, we always want to try our best to start our Bitcoin with the Bitcoin price before we get started into our conversation. So I don't know if Anthony, what
It's around $91,200 right now. It's hovering over, and it's 12th of January,
Yep.
2026, which sounds
I
futuristic,
know
which
it
is
sounds.
wild.
The fact that it's already the 12th of January is also like I feel
Right?
like we just had New Year's, right? I feel like it was just then. Anyways, but thank you so much again. We really appreciate you being here. We're super excited to get to know you. I'm really excited to get to know you better. I know Anthony and you kind of have exchanged conversations on X. And so you've obviously had a huge impact on that community. And so we're just excited that you're going to be able to kind of chat with some of our friends that get to listen in. And and I get to learn a lot more because actually kind of the whole premise of this podcast is for me to learn a little bit more and for us to get on the same page, which has been really fun for both of us. I feel like normally in our society, couples are kind of doing their own thing and then they have to like figure out finances and things like that, but it's not always like really talked about, unfortunately. So we're really excited that we get to do this together and get to talk to people
Yeah.
that have similar mindsets.
Yeah. From my
Yeah.
perspective, I've really enjoyed the couple aspect of what you do. Like when I think of podcasts, there's not another podcast out there that's a couple doing it. So I've taken an appreciation to your podcast. And I mean, I do like Anthony, but Daniela, it's been great just to hear your voice and your perspective. And I think it's added value to me on how I see my wife and how I talk with my wife about it. So big thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thanks, Joel. We appreciate that because that was one of our things. We're like, dude, we never see couples on podcasts. It's always like a girl kind of just like leading the charge, or the man leading the charge too. And so we're like, man, it'd be just such a different dynamic of just being on here.
Hmm.
And I'm always talking about it and like throwing up on her about
Right.
Bitcoin, and then she's like, okay. And so we're like, you know what? Let's just hear other people like Joel, and other guests that we've had. And so it's been pretty great. It's been
Yep.
about a month now. We're still fresh at this podcasting, but we've got such great feedback, such great support.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're just really looking forward to, hearing from you today and, your story as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'd love to dive into your Bitcoin story, really. Like, how did you come across Bitcoin? Like, when did that happen? Your kind of journey of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, the journey of Bitcoin for me, there's like a start and a stop and then a start again. Well, learned about Bitcoin in 2013. So September 2013 is when like I got into Bitcoin. And for me, I was 18 at the time. So I had just finished high school in June prior, and beginning of September, started going to the University of Toronto. Spent 2 weeks at university, decided that university wasn't for me. Being in a lecture of 800 students is just not who I am and how I learn. And so I decided to drop out and start working for a family friend who basically flipped houses. And while we were working, he pulled me into a room and was like, Joel, let me tell you about this thing called Bitcoin. And like right in front of me bought $50,000 worth of Bitcoin, and the price was $124. And he brought his base cost up to $88.
Oh my goodness.
So yes, I get into it at this point, and it's There's a lot going on in the space and kind of looking like it's for criminals. And when I looked at it, it was something that I saw a value to and thought that the price would go up over time. But who am I going to be interacting with if I want to use Bitcoin? So it was something that it's like, all right, I kind of need to get out of this, not really care about it, and just kind of go away from it. So it wasn't something that I completely ignored for the next number of years. It was always something that, probably monthly I looked at the cost and it was like, oh, I was smart because the price went from 124 to like 700 and then it went back down. And it's like, okay, like I made a smart decision. And then, now the price is again 700, it's 1400, it's 2000, it's 3000. Well, now it's back down and it's all that, right? So it wasn't until we had our second child, which was January of 2021. So about this time in 2021, I'm looking at my son, and we hadn't had the vaccine roll out yet, but the vaccines were about to roll out. Stimulus was happening with COVID, and I'm basically looking at my son. I'm holding him, and I'm looking at him going, the money that we are going to spend alone as Canadian taxpayers, right, that are going to go towards everything that we're about to do. My son's going to pay for this for the next 70 years was like what I had thought.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to figure something out that will protect my child, right? And Bitcoin was something that I sort of, or even finances was something that my wife and I started to get into in just after we got married. So probably 2018, 2019, we started talking with a financial advisor, but we didn't really make any moves. And for me, Bitcoin was always in the back of my mind because of the conviction that the guy that I was working for had. Like, he significantly put a lot of money into Bitcoin.
Right.
I don't think he held it all because his lifestyle drastically changed for the better. But basically our financial advisor was like, I don't really know anything about Bitcoin. It's not something I can offer you. So it was never really a conversation. So in 2021, I knew that if I were just to jump in and get into Bitcoin in January, that, if the number goes up, I'm just going to sell and, I'm not going to be smart with this. Right. So I decided that if I'm going to do something, and I am somebody who I'm very methodical, I think things through, I'm logical, I don't really act on emotion and just whimsical moves. So I took, the first part of the year to kind of learn Bitcoin, which then also was like, well, I should probably learn finances as well. And a friend of mine, whose also name is Joel, I guess was also kind of going down the rabbit hole at the same time. But he was more going down the rabbit hole of altcoins and talking about this farming and this staking and all this sort of stuff, which kind of had me like, okay, so I'm kind of now understanding Bitcoin, but what are all these other coins? So summer comes, summer gets busy. I kind of take a break. I get back into it in the fall. And now it's the end of October 2021. I'm like, all right, I feel like I understand Bitcoin to buy enough. I feel like I'm understanding like traditional finance a little bit. So let's buy some blue chip stocks like Apple, Tesla, those types of things and get in. So my buy-in price at that point was $67,000. And a couple days later is now September 11th, I think, or no, October, the 9th of November or 11th of November or whatever is the all-time high of 69K. So I'm like experiencing like the blow off top and like looking back, it's like, oh, well, you got in through like euphoria or whatever. And it's like, no, it's just literally where I jumped in.
Yeah.
But just bought all the way down. Our third son was actually born 6 weeks early in 2022. So he was born November 9th, 2022. So almost, a year later after getting into it. And I'm looking at him, we're in the NICU, not knowing if he's going to make it out of the NICU, what life is going to look like for him because he's having severe respiratory problems. And I'm now looking at him going, I need to take basically the leftover money that I do have that's left, and I need to now put this into Bitcoin because I need a future for him if he needs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the grace of God, like I'm buying basically snipe the bottom of the bear market to then go along with that. But again, that was just perfect timing. That's not something that I'm going to recommend to people to like buy the top, buy the bottom and do
Yeah.
that. I really do preach like a dollar cost average strategy, especially when you're just starting out, because that kind of helps iron out the highs and the lows and kind of
Mhm.
the emotional, psychological side of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of my quick synopsis of what my journey is from, I mean, early on in 2013, largely, again, rejecting it. So basically in 2013, Bitcoin to me was presented as this inflation hedge. And
Mhm.
I'm 18. I don't know what inflation is.
Yeah.
I remember saying to him, like, inflation is for the Argentine peso, right? And now we're in 2026, and I call the Canadian dollar the snow peso, right? Like, inflation is a real thing, and it's not just something that is in third world countries or in other
Mhm.
parts of the world. Like, inflation is hitting us, and inflation was hitting us before COVID. I think COVID
Mhm.
just really obviously ramped a lot of that up with all the stimulus and all the money printing that way. But yeah, it was obviously an ego check and a miscalculation on my end, though. I mean, I can't really beat myself up too much when I'm 18. I'm new to the
Yeah.
world and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. But it's like I look back and it's like if I just listened to him and I actually got into Bitcoin in 2013, how different it would be. But I don't I don't think I would have been ready
Yeah.
to deal with that. Life would have gone off the rails. I wouldn't have had the life that I have now. So I am glad that
Mhm.
Mhm.
I rejected it. But I think we hear about it a lot that like Bitcoin is the ego test.
Mhm.
And yeah, I definitely thought that Bitcoin was something that it wasn't, and that the dollar was something that it wasn't as well, being stronger than it actually is.
Mhm.
And now Bitcoin to me is like I don't like I have a regular job like a 9 to 5 and I
Mhm.
earn dollars, but those dollars to me are kind of useless and I just want Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. I wanted to piggyback on a couple things there. So you're in Canada. So did you always grow up in Canada? You lived there your whole life?
yep, born and raised, I would be a second generation Canadian.
Nice.
Have basically, so I'm in and around the Toronto area. I
Okay.
grew up on one side of Toronto, moved out here for school, met my wife, and she's kind of from the area here. So we kind of just, I mean, it was a cheaper cost of living where we are
Mhm.
here too. So
Yeah.
um, this is where we landed. And so, yeah, I live, an hour-ish, hour and a half, depending on what traffic is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
away from where I grew up. But yeah, basically in the same
Nice.
area-ish, always been in Canada. And um,
Yeah.
Cool.
And then with the story that you were sharing with the gentleman, your friend that like bought 50,000. So like he didn't hold so basically he didn't like hold anything. He's just kind of like
no, I
where's this guy
think
at?
so. He was well, he actually just passed away.
Oh
So
man.
that's where he's at. Unfortunately, yeah, he was one of those guys who he was kind of always there growing up as a kid.
Mhm. Okay.
And then like I worked for him, a good family friend that way. And then just as I moved out here, we kind of grew apart. But big life moments and that sort of stuff, he was always kind of around. Like he was there when we were having our first child and that sort of stuff. And yeah, no, he definitely was like I think he held quite a bit. But I also
Mhm.
think that I mean you're going from $88 a coin, like at the time where I kind of knew what was going on with
Mhm.
the Bitcoin he had to, Bitcoin's now at $7,000. Like I don't blame people for, kind of cashing out, so to say, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, he continued to live the life that he lived. Like he wasn't someone who, if you like, he had money obviously to drop $50,000
Yeah.
into an asset that is very
Mhm.
new and very, immature at that point in 2013. But you wouldn't have seen him and gone, "Oh, you're rich." Like he's
Mhm.
wearing clothes from the thrift store that have
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
paint all over them because, he was mudding a drywall or painting a
Right.
wall for a house that he was building type thing, right? So, but a really super down to earth guy. And then, yeah, when he came into the wealth, like he was blessed and he would travel a little bit and do all that sort of stuff. But he always told me that the moves that he was making was for his kids and his kids' kids. Like this is generational wealth. And again, I didn't even have kids at that point. I had absolutely no clue what generational wealth was.
Mhm.
I remember one of the other things that he was telling me was that he was buying hectares of land up in the Northwest Passage because it was his belief that the ice would melt up there. And he's like, I'll never see like a value in that, but like that's deeded land that I can pass down to like my kids' kids. Like this is all
Yeah.
for my kids. And he was just very somebody who had a generational mindset and wanted to provide,
Mhm.
for his kids and leave a legacy. And I think that's kind of because he didn't necessarily come from something that was great
Mhm.
as well. So, but yeah, hard times create, strong men that way. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
not to say that like my life hasn't, been difficult, but my life has kind of been easy in a lot of ways, having two parents that loved me and had, semi decent jobs. And,
Mhm.
money was tight, but we always had.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I just, unfortunately in 2013, Bitcoin didn't really seem like a need. Um, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It wouldn't have been a need in our brains either. We were kind of in our 2013, were we in col how old were we?
2013, we graduated a couple years out of college, so we're like probably similar on the same
Yeah.
age. Goal. What's interesting too that you shared is that how when you like had your kids and you're like, I need to really double down on Bitcoin, where so many people would probably want to just like stay away from Bitcoin, right? And that's interesting how the perspective and the mindset was like, going back to where you just saw somebody drop all of this on Bitcoin. And to like fast forward, you're like, man, well, I actually need this as much as possible, right?
I
Like,
think it's a great perspective too because you guys are on X, right? So you're talking to like a younger generation probably, not all the time, but there's a lot of younger people that are maybe now thinking, "Oh, maybe I do need to think forward, and think past myself." And so being able to hear even just you sharing this, could be really helpful for someone who's younger. I feel like it would have been helpful for me for sure. I'd like to hear other perspective of like how to be others focused first, and that's what I've heard so much from Anthony, just how Bitcoin and the whole community is very much that way, where you're always like
mm,
wanting to help other people.
yeah,
But then you're looking at your own kids, right? You're just looking at your own kids and you're thinking, gosh, like I need to set them up. I need to make sure that they're ready for whatever this world brings. And that way
mhm,
they can have the life that they deserve,
yeah.
right? That's what we want
right.
for our kids.
So, Joel, what would you say has been like the biggest change from, learning Bitcoin in the beginning until now, like with your journey and having kids now and being married? What would you say has been the biggest change since learning about Bitcoin before and after?
Yeah, I think it's, some people with Bitcoin and the same can be said about faith. And I guess I'm going that direction because I'm going to make an allusion to it is that, some people have that big come to Jesus moment that like life goes from black to white, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Or like it's very drastic. My faith walk hasn't been that. My Bitcoin walk hasn't really been that. It's been this slow drip, right?
Hmm.
And the slow drip starts in 2013. It's something that I kind of paid attention to and I saw and I thought about, but it was never, something that like changed my heart, right?
Hmm.
And then I get into it actually in 2021, and there's a little bit of a heart transformation there. And I would say, probably from early 2021, maybe minus a couple months in the mid part of 2021, it was kind of always like a daily searching. It was, I'm reading books or I'm reading stuff online, I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm listening to podcasts, right?
Hmm.
And it's just information that I'm slowly taking in. So it's hard to say like how things are drastically different, because the change has been a slow process. It's not something that has just snapped and has been. But when I think about it, and you kind of brought up like how does it change with my family and with my wife and as a couple and all that, and
Yeah.
Bitcoin really has been a part of the journey of um what does it mean to be a father? Like it's all happening at the same time of becoming a father, of
Mhm.
becoming
Mm.
a husband. I mean, we did have our first child back in 2019 and got married in 2017. So like there is a bit of a delay, but it's all part of that, right? Like it's all part of the building of the family. And
Mhm.
where I think there's a big change is what would the difference be if I didn't have Bitcoin? And not to say that life is easy or, I'm swimming in money. I'm not. There's definitely financial burdens. There's definitely financial stress. But when you look at like what are the leading causes of divorce, it's finances.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, you know, yes, my wife and I have, some quarrels on finances, and there's a little bit of tension and stuff there, but it's not to the point of you know, that we're going down that road of separation, or like it's actually impacting our relationship. It's just like, how are we figuring this out together? And for me, Bitcoin gives a lot of security of things might be tough, but I know that like we're buying a future that way with Bitcoin. And I think that's where like I can make moves, and I can delay gratification, because I know that like what I'm putting my time and my energy, my effort into, and storing that in Bitcoin is actually going to be something.
Mhm.
And when I kind of look back at the buy at the low in 2020, I remember guys saying that Bitcoin was going to go down to like 10K, 7K, and it's now
Mhm.
17K, right?
Mhm.
And part of the reason why I was able to buy at 17 and put literally everything I had left in was kind of two reasons of, well, if I hold on to this money in Canadian dollars, it's
Mhm.
guaranteed to go down in value. It's not gonna buy me any more of a house that I can buy today. It's not gonna buy me any more of a car that I can buy today. So what do I actually have to lose, right? And then on the flip side, if Bitcoin did go down to $7,000, I know that it's coming back up above 17 and a half. So again, what do I have to lose? But if I
So
don't buy it today at 17 and a half,
Mhm.
in a month from now, I might be buying it at, $30,000.
Mhm.
Right. So that was kind of the mindset with it. So I would say there's been definitely a mindset change of, how do I spend my time? How do I spend my energy? How do I store it? And that needs to be in something that is of sound money. And I think the greatest sound money is Bitcoin. And if I look at the dollar is something that is programmed to go down. It's programmed to be devalued. And when I look
Mhm.
at Bitcoin, it's programmed to go up due to its scarcity and all that it is. So it's kind of like if Bitcoin doesn't work out, I feel like yes, I'm going to blow all this money, but that money was worthless anyways. So I'm going to basically just
Mm.
end up in the same place that I was going
Yeah.
to end up anyways.
Mhm.
So, you know, it, yeah,
That's
No.
that's good. Yeah, and I was gonna add too, because I'm, he's obviously educated himself first on Bitcoin, and hearing that perspective is such a for someone that maybe is in my shoes, right? Allowing their, significant other kind of lead the way in Bitcoin and maybe move their family forward. I always trusted that that's what his heart was. So it wasn't that I didn't, but I just never really took time to educate myself. It is really helpful to hear that that can, you know, either way it's kind of a win. I mean, it's not like you lost anything, right? It's
right,
not that, like, so you want to be able to move your family forward and your finances forward, and if it doesn't work, the money that we're using anyways isn't good anyways, so it's fine. We're going to be fine,
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's
right.
helpful to hear as someone that is just entering into the Bitcoin world, right? To hear that perspective also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel, also, when I know you mentioned earlier that you guys were exploring a financial advisor, right? And knowing now, just for our viewers out there and listeners, like knowing now from studying Bitcoin and putting in the work, what would you like ever explore a financial advisor, knowing what you know now?
No, no.
I know.
I I would pause to say, like, is it worth it to, like, I start to think into the future.
Mhm,
Where do those people go? Like, is there a a need for
mhm,
financial advice moving forward?
mhm.
Um, like the idea that we're moving to a Bitcoin standard. So let's envision it's now 2050. The Bitcoin price is much higher than it is today.
Bajillion.
Right. You said it, not me. And we're on this Bitcoin standard, right? And we're not then investing in Apple stock, and we're not doing this, and we're not doing that. Uh, is there a need for somebody to, advise people on Bitcoin? So yes, maybe there is a need for, financial advice. Maybe that's more Bitcoin advice would be what we would be talking about, in 30 years from now. But it's obviously going to look a lot different, and it's not going to be like, I think there will be more people willing to give their advice for free. And I think you're seeing that now too, is that there's a lot of people on X that are giving their advice. And so, like right now, do I have financial advisors? No, but I do have community around me that is
Mhm,
helping me in my advice, is
Mm,
giving me wise counsel, right?
mhm.
mhm,
But does that look like paid counsel moving forward over the next 30 years? And I don't think so. But at the same time, people are still going to have to innovate in ways, are going to still have to create companies and build companies. And there's going to be
mhm.
a need to sell significant parts of Bitcoin stacks to be able to do some of that stuff. So, like, when does it actually make sense to do that? When do you, and how do you plan to do all that? Right. So, there's still going to be a need for people to have advice. I think it's just going to look a lot different. And for the everyday person, it's not going to be something that they're going to have to seek out. Where when I got into like talking with a financial advisor back in 2019 or whenever that was, it's like I had no clue. And like, how do I even access, TradFi? Because my parents both, with their jobs, they just had pensions. So it wasn't something that they were even accustomed to, just because their employer basically took their money and did the investing for them. So when I like turned to my dad and was like, hey, how do I buy stocks? He's like, I don't know. Like, it's not something I've ever thought of or worried about. So, like, I can't help you, son. Right. And I think
Yeah.
that was also part of, for me, when I'm looking at my children, and not to say that my father failed me in any way. It's just was his circumstance, and I don't blame him.
Right.
But when we talk about responsibility and sovereignty and all that sort of stuff, it's now I look at my children, I'm like, well, I need to figure this out to give you wise advice and wise counsel on how to spend your money and how to do all that. And it was funny today. We're playing a Bitcoin board game, the kids here
Mhm.
at the table, and my daughter looks over at me and she goes, "Daddy, I told my friends at school about Bitcoin today, and like, I don't know. Like, they didn't even know about Bitcoin. Can you believe that?" And I'm like, yeah, I can believe that. Like, most people don't actually know about Bitcoin and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. And then she's like, well, Nana and Papa, they know about Bitcoin. I'm like, they might know about it, but they definitely don't support it or don't agree with it. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not something that everybody knows, but I'm glad that you're taking interest in it and that you are telling other people about it. So
It's
Really
cool.
cool. Was your wife like on board right away when you were starting to, like, when you guys discussed Bitcoin, or even like, question marks like me? I was like, okay, yeah, like that sounds good. Like, I'm gonna let you kind of deal with that. That's
Yeah.
kind of our
yeah, I
perspective.
think it was more like at the beginning, it was definitely like I was very upfront with, this is how much we have. This is how much I am going to put in, and kind of got the okay from her.
Mhm.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, I think for her, it was just very much I trust you and know
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
I'm not somebody who just emotionally does something. So it's not like I'm
Mhm.
on the phone with some guy and he's telling me, oh, you need to get in now. Like,
Yeah.
buy this stock now or buy
Yeah.
this thing, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, I'm going to miss out, and I need to get it, right? So I think there was a groundwork that I had just naturally provided
Right.
for her that she could trust me.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think that that's important. And I think she just kind of trusted my leadership. And, now I definitely still wouldn't really call her a Bitcoiner. I think she's a Bitcoiner by proxy because, like, our
Mhm.
family, like, that's just what we do.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, she still definitely has questions and
Yeah.
and that
Nice.
sort of stuff. And I'm trying to explain and trying to do that. And I think it'll take time. I think
Yeah.
it's actually kind of cool to do some of the children's stuff. Like we have some board games, we have some
Nice.
books and all that. And she can kind of learn alongside in ways. Because I think one of the things that I've actually appreciated with your podcast and kind of hearing the two perspectives off of yourself is that I think, Danielle, you have said a few things in other episodes about something, and I just go like, oh, like it's that perspective that you're looking at things, right? That's
Yeah.
different than the way that I might look at it. And, I, not to say that like I see my wife in you exactly, but there's been a few times where I'm like, I'm seeing my wife in that. And it's like, I can now approach a little differently because I'm hearing
Mm.
it in a different way, right? So, and again, that's why I really appreciate the platform that you guys are bringing at that way with it
Mm.
being a couple.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, at times I think there's been a little tension of like she doesn't understand it. So it's like we've put all this money into it. Where is that money? And
Right.
it's like,
Mhm.
well, it's like
Yeah.
you're trading Canadian dollars for US dollars. So you don't really have the
Mhm.
Canadian dollars anymore. You have American dollars now, right? Like we're trading our fiat money for sound money, Bitcoin,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
Bitcoin has a value that we now denominate in Canadian or American or whatever that is. But
Mhm.
like the goal right now is to stack as much Bitcoin as we can, right? Like
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
keep getting sats, more sats, more sats, more
Yeah.
sats, right?
Yeah.
And like that's what I'm looking at, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And that's the goal. Like that was my goal because I knew there had to be other couples like having these interesting, weird conversations where I'm like, so where's the money? Like, where is it in the air? Like, is it an actual coin? Like, I
Mhm.
was like that low. Like, I was like, I have no idea really what you're talking about. And then also to the other side of that too, when you're having these big purchases or bigger things coming up, you're going to be navigating like, okay, so what do we do with this
Mhm.
savings?
Mhm.
You know, are we just we're saving this forever? Like we never get to touch it ever again, you know? And it's like,
right.
can we use this for something? Because
Mhm.
we have kids, like there's things that we probably should, you know? So it was those conversations that we have also navigated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope it is helpful. And I'm sure we'll dive into other stuff too, like in future episodes too, of like that perspective that I have too.
Yeah, it's
It
totally
is.
natural for her to, have these feelings or have these questions because
Mm-hmm.
it is something that's like off the rails, right? I think we kind of chatted with this before in a previous podcast. Like Bitcoin is off the rails. We never learn about money. So I think even having the conversation about money is already kind of like eerie to people, right? When we're talking about finances, when we're talking about budgeting, like this is something that we've never talked about, through school. And so, when it does come up, we're like, "Ooh, well, that's not for me." It's almost like when people say the word Jesus, right? It's like, "Oh, we're going to go there," right? It's kind of like that, just having that dynamic of, with finances and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. But I think you have to have the conversations. You have to. There's going to be pushback. I know there was pushback. Like, what are we doing? We're just going to keep saving this and stuff like that. But all that's natural.
Yeah.
Going back to what you shared, Joel. One thing is like the good and bad thing about being early to Bitcoin is like being early to Bitcoin, right? It's like if you're early to Bitcoin, you're like, oh man, like we need to accumulate, we need to stack these sats. Like just believe me in a couple years from now. But it's also like, well, like we're so early, like why like nobody even knows about it. So it's like I don't want to do that thing. Right. Because we're so early.
Mm.
And so I don't know, it's just very I think it's a great conversation. That's why we're having this podcast. I want Danielle to like hear from people like you, Joel, and a couple things I wanted to chat about is like, so you talked about sound money. Can you describe to Danielle what is sound money for people out there?
Sound money, I would say, to me, there's three forms of sound money. There's gold, there's silver, and there's Bitcoin.
Yes.
And to me, Bitcoin is the strongest of the three. I think over the last year, my view on gold and silver has changed. It's something I kind of would have scoffed at maybe a year ago of like, why are you investing in it? But when I kind of break into what I think honors God is money that holds your time, right? So if I back the card up completely, um,
Back it
the
up.
most precious asset that we have is our time, right? And our time is given to us by God, right?
Hmm.
So like what is economics in the garden with Adam and Eve? It's it's economics of time. It's Adam has to figure out like how does he manage his time? When is he spending his time with Eve? When is he going out to the garden to tend it and do what he needs to do there, naming the animals, like doing all the things that God had given him to do in the garden, right? Like that was how he had to steward his time. That was his economics, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And today, when we look at the dollar, like I go to work, right? And I exchange my time and my effort that God has given me on this earth. And that's something that we don't know how long we have to live. We don't know what the
Hmm.
quality of our time is going to be because I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. I still have time on this earth, but the quality of that time is not going to be great, right? So
Hmm.
for me to exchange my time because I don't go to work and work for my house, my car, my food, all that
Hmm.
sort of stuff. Like we now need something to have as a monetary exchange, something that we can use in between like my time that represents my time for the effort and vice versa back, right?
Hmm.
So when I look at sound money is something that holds the time that I have put in to store that thing, right? Or to store that time, to store that energy, right? And
Hmm.
when I save in dollars, as I said, it's actually programmed to be devalued, right? They're always going to
Hmm.
print more money because that's their economic model that we need to create liquidity and we need to keep, pushing money into the system.
Right.
Hmm.
Where Bitcoin, gold, and silver are, you can't just print it. There's a set supply of that, right? I mean,
Hmm.
we don't actually know. We can kind of guess what the set supply of gold and silver is. And I think that's kind of where it's a little problematic. And I think gold and silver did a really good job or did a good job up until, recently or whatever. And now as we
Hmm.
move into a digital world, we need something that we can use digitally moving out of the analog world, right? And gold and silver is very analog. So
Hmm.
yeah, I hope that answers
Yeah.
an idea of what sound money is. It's just something that transports your time over space.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No,
No.
that was very, very helpful for me because that alone, because we've always talked about, we always had the same mindset about, our time is our most precious gift, right? Of being able to have, and we trade our time for money, or trade, yeah, trade our time for money. And so we want to make sure that what the time that we're spending on that is going to produce something. And when you have sound money, it's going to be able to hold on to that,
Hmm.
that value that you've just put in so much time away from your family, your kids, the things you enjoy doing. So that is, yeah, that was a very great explanation for me to understand that better.
Also, to add on to that is that I think people like, let's just say you don't even know understand Bitcoin, or you're like it's too like what do you talk about digital currency, cryptocurrency, right? Bring it back down to elementary level. If you think about it, Joel, everything has evolved in our lives. Our phones, our cars, airplanes, surgeries, like technology has just evolved, but what is the one thing that is still lagging? Our money. Like our money is not has is the one thing that's been delayed forever, right? With dollars, with little we just got rid of the pennies recently. I guess we stopped printing pennies like like we're on these little coins and dimes. Like everything has evolved in our life, like our housing, everything. our phones and accept our money.
Mm.
And so it's just always interesting. Like, even if you're not into Bitcoin, like, just you have to think that something's wrong with the money, right? It's broken. And how I feel like everyone's working harder, for less. And, I just see it all the time with work and, day and day, hearing people, their stories and stuff like that. It's just like, what are we talking about?
Right.
But I'm going off the rails, so I'm gonna bring it back here. So, but Joel, so I wanted to touch base with you. So, number one, I got super fired up. So I think you did this like 30-day challenge in December where you were just gonna just get on the phone, on the camera and just start spitting some fire Bitcoin content every day or 60 days. Can you share a little bit more? What's all that about?
Yeah, I think for me, it was no more than anything to just do something out of discipline. So I am someone who, like, I do things and I can get things done, but I'm very, if I don't need to do something today, I can push it off to tomorrow. And I think that's just a way that I also manage stress, is that, like, if I don't absolutely need to do something in this moment, if I can push it off, I'm going to push it off to, balance, like, what do I actually need to do now? Like, I need to eat now, so I'm not going to worry about that paper that's due, or, that, project that I'm doing at work. Like, I can actually do that tomorrow. Like, I have time, right? So for me, it was just, there's been a season that I've been kind of working through over the last maybe 3 months of how do I just become more disciplined. And this was just something that for me, it would be fun to do. It's something that, like, I'm kind of doing just in a different way. And to me, it was also like, how do I grow in that area? How do I, you can sit there and you can type out an X post and you can edit it, you can go back, you can think about it for a while, right? And text is one thing. And I think in ways I have learned how to communicate through word, or like
Mhm.
text word. I've
Right.
learned how to communicate in short form posts on X. It doesn't have to be long, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference in hearing people's voices. There's a difference in communication on how you talk and speak and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So to me, it started out as like, let's just do something that I can learn and practice the act of discipline. So
Mhm.
I sort of created like a non-negotiable. It was something that I put out to people saying, hey, for the next 30 days, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So there was an expectation that I was going to do it, and not that I was thinking anybody would actually listen to it. Like, that was okay if nobody
Hmm.
didn't, because it wasn't necessarily for you to hear as much as it was for you to hear, because you were the intended audience. But it
Hmm.
was, there was a very much a selfish part of me doing it, was that this was just for me to learn something about discipline.
Mm.
And then it kind of evolved a little bit of, it was a discipline thing for me, but then also, like, it's just another nuance of social media. It's another nuance of learning how to communicate and all those sorts of things. And then obviously doing that on something that I have a passion about and talking about. So it's actually something I didn't do every 30 days.
Hmm.
I got super sick, like my second or third day trying to do it.
Man.
So
Oh,
I took a
man.
day off that way. And there might have been like a couple days on the weekend that just, like, with family stuff, it just,
Hmm.
again, I prioritize, and it's like, yes, could I pump something out here, but do I need to take away from my family?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I think just before Christmas, I got to day 27, I think it was. And then after Christmas, I was like, because again, I wasn't going to take away from family and all the stuff that was happening over Christmas. And then when I kind of
Yeah.
got back to the idea of doing it, I'm like, why am I really going to start this for another 3 days? So I just kind of
Hmm.
ended that. And it's something that I might do a little bit again,
Hmm.
just do some more videos and that sort of stuff. Cause it did, I think it helped me see something in my day. Like, it often wasn't something that I pre-planned out the day before. I somehow had like a script of a plan of,
Yeah.
this day I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to build off and do that and all that sort of stuff. It was kind of organic in a way of
Hmm.
what I wanted to talk about on the day, but it was something that I could see something in real life. And whether that was, you know, seeing something at the grocery store and being like, ham is 3 times the price that it was, and
Yeah.
now I'm thinking about inflation, and then that leads me to my conversation for the day,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And just that act of reflecting on daily life and applying it to Bitcoin, or even like I think a lot of it also had parts of my faith and Christianity kind of pulling through with that. It's just applying the idea of Bitcoin, applying the idea of my faith to my everyday, and then
Mhm.
communicating that with people and sharing that with people. Because like kind of like you guys said, it's if you guys are having the conversations with yourselves, and if I'm having a conversation with myself internally, there's probably other people having those conversations with
Right.
themselves, or would find value listening to some of those conversations, and what that might spark in a conversation internally for other people hearing something. It might not even necessarily be fully the same, or they might not agree, but it might start something in them and snowball down into something else. So
Yeah, that's
Dude.
so good. That's so good. I wasn't fortunate enough to hear all those, but that's
probably a
really
good
cool
thing.
because it does. What's that?
I said it's probably a good thing.
It
Well,
was good. I
he
wanted to
attract.
bring it up because
Yeah.
I thought it was really great. I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, but I was saying though, I appreciate your honesty about it coming from a place of discipline too, because it is true. There's a lot of things that like we can just put to the side and not want to, it's like, do I need to do this? And it is. It's so I have the kind of the similar mindset where I'm like, I prioritize things often. When you have kids, you do have to prioritize a lot. Um, and so you're like, do I need to post right now or so there's a lot of things that you go into and you can push things off really easily. You can talk yourself into something and you can talk yourself out of something really quick too.
Hmm.
Um, so that's really cool that you were able to do that though. And it's true. We all have these internal conversations with ourselves and someone will bring it up and I go, I was just thinking about this, or I was just having this conversation with someone. Often that happens to me all the time. I feel like I'm always just having these like crazy, like, did this come to me because someone heard my brain or where did this come from? So that's really cool that you're able to do that. And then I guess you were also doing like a kind of a challenge, or you doing pleb highlights, Anthony said?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
what is a pleb first?
I don't know, Anthony, would you have a good definition on that?
Yeah, I would say like a pleb is somebody that's just a normal person, just stacking and just sharing about their Bitcoins, sharing Bitcoin and their Bitcoin story. And
Does it stand for something?
I don't think it stands for anything.
I
Do you?
believe it comes from like a medieval period of time. Like I think it was
Okay.
just the lowly pleb, I believe, was something of a um like a talk down upon from the elites. Like so
Okay.
basically you have the elites and the plebs is kind of how I sort
Okay.
of looked at it.
Okay.
But I think to what you kind of said is it's like the everyday people, right?
Hmm.
That is kind of how I look at it. I was kind of blanking there when you asked me the question. That's why I
Yeah.
passed it
No.
off
No
to you
worries.
a little bit.
No.
You got me going on the thought. It's almost midnight here, so
Oh,
Oh, you're
we don't
good,
blame
those
you.
things.
dude.
But yeah, the pleb highlights for me, I guess, is just something of it's the new year. I kind of came out of doing um the video challenge that I was doing. And one of the things that I look back on with my Bitcoin journey is it's not something that I have come to, right? It's not like I somehow have found Bitcoin and I'm some genius. It's yes, I've come to a realization of Bitcoin, but I've come to other people, and those people have brought the value to me and have helped me learn. Like there's nothing that I have figured out on my own. It's been
Mhm.
reading books, it's been listening to
Yeah.
podcasts, and for the last couple of years of being really active on X has been being in community with people and kind of working through, right? And part of my pleb highlights is we oftentimes think of the sailors, the Jeff Booths, the Saifedean, like all these big people. And not that I'm saying we shouldn't be listening to them, and I love hearing them speak,
Mm-hmm.
But I also love hearing the everyday person speak. And that's what I love about podcasts like you guys, is that, you are just everyday, normal working people who have a family,
Plebs.
who, is like me. You get it. Like, we get
Mm-hmm.
each other, even though we haven't met each other. We live in different
Right.
countries, right? Like, we
Yeah.
both have 3 kids. We're
Mhm.
younger,
Yeah.
we're experiencing the same struggles in life. And again, not to say that somebody like Sailor doesn't have a struggle. He has a completely different struggle,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's just a difference there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight people to start the year of, here are people who are doing something that's great and deserve recognition, but also it's kind of my thanks to the people that I'm highlighting of,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm highlighting you, you have actually personally made an impact in my life and in my Bitcoin journey. And it's just something that, like, I want to give people a voice and support. And that's not to say that my account is large or has much value, but because obviously there are people who, follow me and listen to me and that sort of stuff. If I can provide value to them by showing them somebody else, because I have gotten value from those people, like, I think that just helps the system and helps everybody. And like, with Bitcoin isn't something that, like, I win because you lose, right? And that's a very
Yeah.
TradFi fiat mindset,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to, you know, not talk about and promote somebody on my X page because I just want to keep all the followers to myself, and I just want to grow my page, and I want to become big, and I want to become
Mm-hmm.
famous. And I don't want to become famous. It's not my goal. My goal and my intention for my page is kind of like a personal diary journaling for me, but is also for me to build into others, is to help people in their journey. And while doing that, I'm also building into my own journey, right? So the pleb highlight is just to do that. It's just to help, others see other people. It's to support other people. It's to give them thanks for, providing value in the space, and just trying to be an encouragement with other people. So
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's
I
really cool.
I love it. And I'm a pleb. You're a
We're
pleb.
plebs.
We're plebs,
we're
Joel,
all
and
plebs.
we're all
And
plebs.
you guys were my
And
highlight for today.
yes, I was gonna
Oh,
actually share that with my
cool.
Danielle. Yeah, with you on there. So
Thank
yeah,
you. I
he
appreciate
highlighted
it.
us this morning. It was awesome.
That's
So
super cool.
the podcast. So it's super cool.
We're excited.
And yeah, we appreciate the love and support, Joel.
We have a similar mindset too, because it's you do learn a lot from people that are navigating similar life journeys, right? When you have younger kids, especially, and even like me, I'm with the kids often, so I'm meet other moms, and we can often relate at some point in the conversation about something because we're navigating younger kids. So it's really neat that I'm now gonna just call us all plebs, because I just now it's a word that I need to integrate.
You'll have to
um
look up the actual definition in a
I did.
dictionary.
I did.
Oh,
I
you
did.
did?
I did.
you
So
just
I
pulled it
looked.
up.
Yeah, I looked it up.
You're
So
quick.
there's
A Bitcoin.
I put a Bitcoin pleb since we're Bitcoiners. So it was like a regular person, not an institution or a whale. I was right a little bit. I had a little
I
context
still
right
don't know
there.
what a whale is, but
A whale is like
as in I know what a whale is. I just don't know what a whale means in the.
or like Michael Saylor is someone who buys a lot of Bitcoin,
He's a
right?
whale.
He's a whale,
Got it.
right? That's
Whales like often can manipulate markets. So if I were to sell my Bitcoin stack, nobody would know. Like, it wouldn't change the market. But if Sailor were to liquidate his whole, stack, it would
It would change
manipulate the
things.
market quite a bit. So like, whales can take the market up; they're big,
Mhm,
and whales
mhm,
can take the market down as well, right?
mhm.
Nice.
That's perfect.
That's perfect.
That's perfect. And then also for the Bitcoin pleb, the definition was someone stacking sats little by little, DCAing. And then also at the same time they're learning, holding, and building conviction over time, which is a perfect.
That's a.
We're definitely
I'm for
plebs.
sure a pleb.
Yeah, I'm a
We're
pleb.
all plebs.
100%. Awesome.
Joel, we talked about all this stuff about Bitcoin. Is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think if I were to paint all that with a brush, it would be that no matter where you are in your journey, So you kind of threw at me, you have somebody who's starting, somebody who's in it, right?
Mhm.
You don't know.
Mm.
Yes. That's so good.
So if you're just starting your journey, you don't know,
Yeah.
right? And I think for me, when I look back, I thought I knew. I thought that the dollar was something that was strong. And I thought that Bitcoin was something that it was not, right? So it's just this idea of keep learning, of always grow. And today in 2026, I've spent a lot of time learning about Bitcoin, but I believe that I've still only scratched the surface. And like you said, the world is evolving as well. So as much as we are learning and we see Bitcoin's use cases in one way or even interact in Bitcoin in a way, that's going to change over time. And as your conviction changes, so is the way that you are going to look at Bitcoin, the way you're going to hold Bitcoin, the way that you're going to spend Bitcoin, right? So don't just ever stay where you're at. And that would be my encouragement to everyone, in regardless of what we're applying this to in life, whether that's work, whether that's with your family, with your spouse, Anthony, your wife, your relationship can always get stronger. You can always get to know her more, and you can always get to love her more. Right. Um, and Danielle, the same thing to
Yeah.
Anthony. I need to hear that for myself. I need to know my wife more. I need to love my wife more. I need to love my
Mm-hmm.
kids more. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what area we apply this in life. And I think we can get a lot of egos in the space. And whether you're a newbie or you've been around for a while, it's just continue to learn, continue to grow, and explore what is Bitcoin. I think I've heard from a couple people like, oh, I've been around in Bitcoin for a long time, like I know everything. And it's like, well, I can almost guarantee that you don't, because new things are coming out and there's new things to apply it to and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, you might have an opinion on something, but like something like a treasury companies, that is something that is very
Mhm.
new and you might have an
Yep.
opinion on it. And
Yep.
we all come to our conclusions today on what that is. But I think all of us are going to be slightly wrong or slightly right in what
Mhm.
we think, right? As markets evolve, as things change, as information in different
Mhm.
environments of economics in our world and all that sort of stuff are different, things are going to change. So you can't just stay where we're at. And when Bitcoiners kind of look at gold bugs and all that, and they're like, oh, you're a boomer and you're staying back in the past, like, we're dealing with digital money, right? As much as Bitcoin is going to stay at the core of what Bitcoin is, the way that we do stuff, there's always going to be more to learn. So don't just stay where you're at, continue to learn and grow and develop.
That is so good. All you Bitcoiners out there, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you hear Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. Keep learning, keep growing.
I don't know what I'm talking about either. So like that's where the humility comes in. And that's why I think, like I say, stack sats, stay humble, right? Is that, I think like we are blessed to be this early, and it's not because we're some smart people. It's because, well, I mean, you guys are, but it's not because of our own merit, let's say. It's just because we decided that we are going to question something and we're just going to look at something. Like I'm just an idiot. Like there's nothing great and special about me. I just heard this from a guy, spent, what is that, 7 years kind of thinking about it, and then, got into it, right? But it changed at the moment of like, something's wrong and I need to find out an answer to it. It's when I decided to seek something, and seeking to find, you can't just sit here in the seat and look around to find something. If
Yeah.
something's in the room here and I want to find it, like I have to make an action. I have to look. Okay, I don't see
Mhm.
that thing now. Now I have to get up. I have to walk around. I have to work to find that thing. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not to just stay stagnant. You got to keep growing.
It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so good. I always love to use the term seek to understand, right? Seek to understand money, seek to understand your wife, seek to understand your kids, seek to understand what you're doing every day at work, right? To get better at your job, build a skill set. seek God, right? Seek to understand is so good.
Mhm.
That's been one of my things that's always been like stuck with me ever since I started reading books. Just seek to understand like how things work, right? And how they utilize the stock market, learning about Bitcoin, reading books, listening to podcasts, etc. I could go on forever. But where do you see Bitcoin at the end of 2026? Any guesses? Any predictions?
I think it was my first. Yeah, I did my first podcast with Vince with the
Dude,
Bitcoin
love
broadcast,
it.
and he asked me the question at the end. What are your price predictions for the end of the year? Yeah, my price predictions didn't hit. But if I were to make a guess on what Bitcoin does, um, I think in 26 we see a positive Bitcoin. I don't think that we're going down significant. If we do somehow go down significant, I think that just ends up getting bought up pretty quickly. A year from now, I suspect we are above the 91K or whatever we are today. I'm going to say we're probably well above the 91K. Again, that's just my thought, but as I have already highlighted, I'm just an idiot. I'm a lowly pleb. I don't know anything. So,
You're a
but
pleb.
when I look at the economic environment, I think when I look at the United States, they're not going to not print money. And I think in 26, they're going to print a ton of money. And when I look at Canada, there's a huge, um, need again for liquidity that's going to have to be pumped in. And if I were
Uh-huh.
to look at my guess, maybe more for the US economy and for the Canadian economy,
Uh-huh.
I think the US economy is going to do significantly better than what the Canadian economy is going to do in the next 12 months. One of the things here in Canada that we have is we don't actually have 30-term mortgages or 30-year mortgages or 25-year mortgages, whatever you sign for.
Yeah,
You sign for like 5 years, right? So like a lot of people who were having the low interest rates in 2020, 2021, when,
mhm,
you're close to 1%, 2%,
mhm.
all of those are going to start coming due. And I think I read something that it's like 80% of home mortgages are coming due in 2026 in Canada. So
Wow.
we have a huge bubble that's going to happen of people who, they might have a $1,500-$1,800 mortgage payment today, but in
Uh-huh.
6 months from now, that mortgage payment that went up from 2% to now a 5.5 or something around
Wow.
there now is going to be like $3,500, right? And how do they afford that, right?
Wow.
So, I think that we're gonna have a problem here in Canada with real estate. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the government tries to solve that and fix that. And the government loves to print money and save people, because for Canadians, most of like the boomer generation and people who are older than me, real estate has always been the thing that Canadians have kind of invested in and have seen
Mhm,
as a store of value, and has been safe. And we've had lots of foreign investment here in Canada,
mhm,
particularly with our banks and with real estate. So unfortunately, I don't. My economic outlook's not great for Canada, but I
mhm,
think that when I look at what's going to happen in the United States, or what I see predicting in the United States, of lots of money being printed, interest rates being low. Here in Canada, what's going to happen? Like, money's just going to be printed between
mhm,
our two countries, and the same thing's going to happen in other countries. So I think there's going to be a huge
Mm.
liquidity injection into all markets. And again, I'm a
mhm,
little bit more invested myself in just in terms of what I know and what I look at, being Canada and the United States. And
mhm.
that to me just makes me bullish on what Bitcoin's going to do over the next 12 months. But at the same time, selfishly, I would love it just to be here, January 13th, 2027, and the price be at 91K, because that just means I was able to stack more sats
Yes.
for cheaper
Mm.
prices, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can try and find more money over the next 12 months, but what I'm going to make is basically going to be what I'm going to make, right? So
Mhm,
that kind of limits the amount of sats that I can earn,
Mm.
that I
mhm,
can convert to. And if I can do
mhm.
that at cheaper rates, like, that's better for me. Though it's
Yeah.
also better for me if the number goes up too. right? Because
Yeah.
then, you know, so
It's just really crazy though, because I don't think people grasp like inflation enough, like and where we're going with this. Because if it's right now like this in 2025, like where are we going to be in, 3, 5 years from now? Like that's something that has to be like you have to be thinking. You're like almost forced to think in the future, right? And I don't think people are just, but
Yeah.
people are so immersed in their everyday life, chasing the dollar that they're just like, how am I going to meet ends meet this month? How am I
well,
going
I
to do it
think
next
I
month?
think a lot of people are too busy to really look at it, but I also think
Mhm,
that a lot of people, I think they know that the money is broken, but
mhm,
they want to blame, or they just end up blaming the wrong thing, right? And I
Yeah.
mhm,
think that probably a lot of that comes from propaganda and media, and the way that politicians and the big elite want it to look is because they don't
mhm,
want it, like, the bank and the elite don't really want the system to change because they benefit from
mhm.
it. So why would they put anything out that would highlight that they're actually the ones that are doing something wrong? So
Yeah,
we're just going to
yeah.
spin up, and I'm not saying that some of this isn't wrong, but we're going to spin
Mhm,
up other narratives, right? Like, go on X or flip on the news or whatever, and you're now something about Venezuela. You're now watching something about the
mhm.
Somalians in Minnesota, and it's, every week
Yeah,
the flavor of the thing changes, but it's something that we can all just, point our fingers at somebody else and say, it's not my fault. It's not the thing that I'm putting my trust in. It has nothing to do with me, and it has everything to do with everybody else. It's immigration, and like, we need to
mhm,
re-immigrate everybody coming in, and it's all these
mhm.
people coming from foreign places. They're really the ones that are the issues,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
yes, we can go down that policy and all that sort of stuff from a government standpoint and
Mhm,
say that maybe we're bringing in too many people, or maybe we're not bringing in, like, we can have those conversations, and those are
mhm.
kind of secondary conversations, but people, I think, don't want to take the responsibility on themselves. They kind of look
Yeah.
at another thing that they can
Mhm,
throw their anger at, and now we're putting our anger at these things that are coming out. And I think a lot of it, again, I'm not trying to say that those things aren't happening in those places, because they very much are, but the root cause of those things are also, like, coming back
mhm,
to the banks. It's coming back to the government. It's coming back to the
mhm,
people who
Distractions.
benefit from the
mhm,
system, right? And they just use it
mhm.
as a distraction, right? So
Mhm.
we're
So
too busy in our time with our kids, our lives, our work. Like,
mhm.
a lot of people have second jobs. Some people have third jobs,
Yeah.
right? Like, we don't have enough time in the day, right? And that's why, like, when I talk about Bitcoin being a store of our value, of our time, the longer we're in Bitcoin, the more you're not going to need that second job, the more you're not going to need that third job, and you can rely on the Bitcoin, and it brings back what was, right? And you're going to have
Mhm,
time with your family. You're going to have time with your spouse. You're going to have time to actually look at the things that matter in this world. You're going to be able to read your Bible. You're going to be able to read about, medical stuff, and actually look at your health, and not just take, the status quo of what a pharmaceutical company wants you to believe, right? And that's
mhm.
not to say that pharmaceuticals don't have their place and their time and all that sort of stuff, but, we got here, and civilization has come to where we are without a lot of that stuff,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So, but all that's suppressed because you can't monetize it. It's not something, right? And I know I'm going down like 3,000
No,
other
you're
rabbit holes
good.
here, right? But
Yeah,
I
you're
think a
good.
lot of it is just that we don't have the time, and we're distracted by all of these things, and just bringing it back to Bitcoin, I think it's going to allow us to slow down, actually look at some of these things, and take the responsibility of the knowledge, right?
Agreed.
And I
Mhm,
think that's
Agreed.
hard for people. People don't want to have the responsibility, because if the money fails, and, I'm now looking at my son and say, "Hey, we don't have money." Do I
Yeah.
want to look at him and say, "Hey, daddy failed"? Or do I want to say, that's Trump's fault, or that's Carney's
exactly.
fault, or Trudeau's fault, or, it's
Mhm,
really the bank. It wasn't my fault, son, right?
mhm.
But I think, like, the longer you're in Bitcoin, the more you see that, A, you don't necessarily want to trust those people.
Mhm,
And if we're moving to something that we believe is true, and I like to use the word, like, being a truth seeker, right?
mhm.
and Bitcoin is built on truth. It's built on code. It's built on math,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can't make that up. Like that is just intrinsically what God has created the world to be. Like God created the math of Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
back in the beginning, right? Like there's
Yeah.
nothing there that's actually new. It's just put together. It's a puzzle piece that was put together to make Bitcoin that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, we take on that responsibility now as people. We don't need to trust a bank to hold our money. We can be our own bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Mm-hmm.
have to, we can rely on Bitcoin, right? So we can have that responsibility, but that's a scary thing for a lot of people,
It
especially
is.
when you
It
have
is.
lived in the quote unquote comfort
Yep.
of passing your responsibility onto other people. And we do that in so many areas of our lives. We pass on a responsibility as Christians to our church to just tell
Yep.
us what is. We pass on our responsibility to the state and provide schooling for us, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much that we're doing there. And I know like there are people doing other things differently, right? But it's taking on that responsibility. And I think when we take on that responsibility, that's where we can love each other more. We can actually have a society that is flourishing and beneficial and is cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the
Yep.
issue.
No,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's so
No, that's
good.
good. Focus on things Bitcoin allows us to focus on things that matter. It allows us to focus on things
And
that
control
matter.
the controllables, control what you can control, and not rely on other outside things that, we usually put the blame on. Well, Joel, this has been awesome. We're gonna let you go to sleep now. Uh, we really
I'll wake up
appreciate
in
your
4 hours.
I know. I'm so
Do you
sorry.
really, do you really, do you wake up that early, Joel?
Yeah, my alarm goes off at 5 o'clock. My alarm, or I woke up yesterday, I guess now at 4:44 is when I woke up, and I woke up in my son's bed because he woke up at I think it was 2:30 because he had a bad dream about a wolf. So
Man.
he was scared that a wolf was in his bedroom and that the wolf would get him and all that sort of stuff. So I laid in his bed with him and I ended up falling asleep. And I guess I woke up. It was 4:44, and I was like, well, I should just get up for the day because what's the point of crawling into bed with my wife for 10 minutes when the alarm's just going to
Yeah.
go off? So let's get
Yeah.
downstairs, go do some push-ups, uh, make a coffee, read my Bible, and do all that. So that's kind of how I
Nice.
start my morning at 5. But yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm a night owl, but I'm forced to get up early. But it's been a
Yeah.
blessing actually to get up early before everybody else and just kind of start my day that way. So
Yeah. We try to do the same. Definitely. It's definitely a peaceful time. But yeah, thanks again.
I can't thank you enough
I
for hopping
know.
on here. With the time difference, we really appreciate it. I'm so glad we've been able to like connect on this
Yes.
and get this down on the calendar.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. If you don't mind sharing, where people can find you, whether it's on X, YouTube, or wherever.
yeah, I'm just basically on X, Joel Hodlman. You can find me there. I am someone who, if you just want to reach out and chat, just come reach out and chat. Maybe you heard something here that you agree with. Maybe you heard something that you disagree with. If you wanna talk, like this is much a conversation like with me with you guys, but it's also for the masses. I would love to hear some conversation and dialogue back and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So if you reach out to a DM, it's not gonna fall on deaf ears. I will write back and I will reach back out and respond. I think that's important, and I think that's kind of what this is all about is
Yeah.
supporting one another and building into one another. So yeah,
Awesome. I know we will continue to connect with you, and everyone else can also connect with Joel on X.
Thanks, Joel.
for sure. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
Dude,
Absolutely.
thanks, man. Have a
Thanks.
good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you want more of the Lunas, like and subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share this episode. It helps us reach more people learning about Bitcoin right alongside us. Until next time, stay curious, stay stacking, and we'll see you on the moon.